morning, everybody. It's great to join you here and to be here with the Chief Minister. We've just signed this very important funding agreement and improvement agreement for ACT schools. What we're trying to do is make sure that right around the country, in 9,500 schools, that schools have got the resources they need to get kids a great education, not just today, but for generations to come. And what that money can enable is extra resources, so students can have one-on-one support, extra resources for literacy and numeracy, extra resources for specialist teachers, extra resources to make sure that students with disabilities and students with special needs get the support that they need. So it's an exciting day for us. But as I understand it, you've got questions for us, is that right? Okay, are they hard questions? Right, that was a truly terrifying pause, wasn't it? A truly terrifying pause. Well, we'll take some questions and see how we go at answering them. So, yes.
Good morning, Minister. I was wondering, how will the National Plan for School Improvement affect ACT public schools and us as students?
Okay. Well, I can say broadly what will happen. It is the kind of work and support that we've talked about today, just in signing the agreement. So extra resources can be used in accordance with the decisions of your local school for school improvement, working with the ACT government and the ACT authorities. But we've been out in a lot of schools through national partnerships showing what works. It's about relying on our great principals, empowering school principals. It's about supporting teachers so that they can be the best possible teacher, including when they're new teachers and they need extra support. It's about the one-on-one work, making sure that each child has got their own learning plan. So if they're at the front of the class, they're getting extended. If they're lagging behind, they're getting the support they need. And extra resources too for children who come to school with some things that can affect their education, whether that's a disability, being from a poorer home, being an Indigenous student. So we're trying to roll it out right around the country, but your Chief Minister will be making the very direct plans here, so I'll hand over to Katy.
I think one of the most important things about this national plan is it means wherever you go in Canberra, you're going to get the same level of resourcing to make sure you get a good education. And that means whether you're going to a small school, a big school, a school in a more wealthy area, or a school in a poorer area, it means we're going to be very clear about the money we put in and the extra money that's coming from both the ACT and the Commonwealth. And it also means, you know, that funny little divide that happens about what happens in non-government schools and government schools, it means that's an end to that too. We just say, if you go to a government school or a non-government school, you get this amount of money, and we're going to put, the two governments are going to put extra money in to make sure that you get the best education you can.
Thank you. Yes. Sorry, what's your name? Hello, Sophie. Thank you.
What's your view on the use of new technology, iPads for example, in the high school environment, and what role does technology hold in the report?
Okay. Well, one thing I can absolutely say about new technology is you are always going to be better at it than me. I do use an iPad for work. I actually have my own personal iPad. But one thing I know coming to schools is that you, the young people of today, are the ones that they call digital natives, the ones who are just growing up with this embedded in your environment. So you haven't come to it, you know, picking it up and puzzling over it. It's always been part of your world. Because it's part of your world now, you need all of the skills as that world keeps changing. So I don't know what the successor thing is going to be to iPads, but I do know that there's going to be one, and during the course of your working life there will be dozens and dozens and dozens of changes in new technology, new waves. I mean, in my working life I've lived through mobile phones being introduced into workplaces, you know, way back when we didn't have the mobile phones, the computers being introduced into workplaces the way they are now, moving from fax machines to emails, to tell a story against self-interest. When I worked at a law firm and we got a fax machine for the first time and I first used it, I actually photocopied the sheet of paper before I put it on the fax. I don't know what I thought was going to happen to the original, that it was going to go down the machine and never come back out. But, you know, all of these waves of change. And so for you, we want to make sure your schools are resourced so that they can keep up with changes in equipment and your learning. I think the iPads give a particular ability to personalise learning. So it means that you can all be in a shared environment but working on quite different things at quite different levels and on the right thing to get that knowledge gap, learning gap for you filled, but the student next to you might be working on something else because that's what they need for their education.
Yeah, no, I think you've covered all of that.
Yes.
Are you prepared for the upcoming election?
Yes, I'd say we are, in the sense that what the election's about is a choice between, two contending sides of politics, but that makes it a choice between two visions of our country's future, and I'm very clear on what my vision of our nation's future is, and it really is about investing in the future, and that means it's about investing in you. You're going to grow up in a century that is largely defined by the changes in our region of the world. I've spoken about this as the Asian century. You'll live in a time where the world's economy is shaped overwhelmingly in our region of the world, where the big strategic changes in the world are in our region, which means that if we're going to thrive as a nation in that time of change, we've got to get you an education that is world class. We can't have your education here and the standards of our region up here. At the moment, 4 of the 5 top schooling systems in the world are in our region of the world, but our schooling system is not amongst that top 5, and so I've set that as a national goal. So the election will be about that kind of contending vision for the future, so I'm ready for it in that sense. But we've got a fair bit of work to do before we get to election day, a lot of things to get done, including concluding agreements like this around the country with other leaders of states and territories. Yeah.
Good morning. I would like to ask how you cope with the stress of being a Prime Minister, but more specifically dealing with the constant media attention and negative remarks made about you and the government.
That's a good question. Maybe we could both have a little insight into that. One thing, I've got good friends to rely on, so that matters. Number 2, I think if you're really driven by a sense of purpose about what you want to achieve, then some of the sort of incoming negativity doesn't worry you so much. I think if you were unclear or filled with doubt about what you were trying to achieve, you'd get buffeted around more easily. But if you're very clear and very determined, then it means you're more solid, even when negative things are being said. So that's kind of my way of dealing with it. I don't let it distract me from the really big things I'm trying to get done.
Yeah, I think I take the same approach. I mean, part of going into politics, you go in with an understanding that it's not an easy job every day. Some days it's the best job in the world, and other days are pretty tough. You get pretty thick skin, I think, is another way of protecting yourself. But the Prime Minister's right. You've got to have a real sense of why you're doing the job and what you want to achieve, and that drives you, and it drives, in a way, your achievement. Things like this, being able to sit with the Prime Minister and make a decision about education funding is a huge privilege as well. So there's always those days where you've had enough of what people are saying about you, but these days pay for that.
Yes.
Do you have any future sporting plans for Lyneham, sport and recreational centres?
It might be over to you.
Well, we know Lyneham excels in many areas. It's a fantastic school, and you've got an elite sporting program here as part of it. You've also got other areas of strength like your performing arts, your band program, all of those areas. So I think from the ACT government's point of view, we work with each school about areas they want to develop, particularly if there's areas they want to specialise. I think that is part of